Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, the best place for mommies, speech language pathologists, and teachers. I'm Olivia, a bilingual SLP and a mommy to a toddler. Today I wanted to do a reaction to some news that came out this week regarding Bruce Willis. His family released a statement saying that he has been diagnosed with a disorder called aphasia, which is a communication issue that often results from a head injury or a stroke, but not necessarily. Sometimes it could happen from other complications or other issues such as tumors or dementia. The reason I wanted to discuss this is because, well, not only is aphasia something that is treated by speech and language therapy, so this is something that I worked with during grad school. I've had patients who had aphasia. More importantly, just the general topic that this has brought, and also Bruce Willis in particular, because he's actually someone that I have discussed in therapy before when I was in grad school for something different, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I just think that it's very interesting that he's the person that is talking about this topic and is opening up about it, because again, he's someone that has been mentioned before in the SLP world. So just to discuss the general news that came out this past Wednesday, Bruce Willis's family put out a statement saying that he has been diagnosed with aphasia, and as a result, he's stepping away from his acting career. They did not mention the cause, so I don't want to speculate. I know that I've seen some articles online talking about the fact that he's had some injuries on film in the past, including he actually sued a film company, I think in 2003, because of the injuries that he sustained on the set. So I know like that was something that was being speculated in like the cycles on the news, but the truth is we are unsure what caused this aphasia diagnosis for Bruce. So there are three types of aphasia. The first one is expressive, and that affects your ability to speak. So this is when the patient is having difficulty expressing themselves, to communicate expressively what they want to say. There's comprehensive, which affects your ability to understand the language. So some patients might be able to speak well, but their ability to understand language is affected by the disease. And finally, there's global aphasia, which affects both your expressive and receptive. So both parts of the ability to communicate are affected. So there's difficulty speaking, and there's also difficulty understanding what's being said. And so I also wanted to note that Bruce Willis's family did not state which one of these types he has. So again, that's something we're not familiar with. I'm curious if that's something that he might share somewhere down the line. And again, as of me recording this video, the information we have is limited, so maybe some things have changed since then, but for now we just kind of have a general information, which in my opinion is already generous enough of him to share. You know, he didn't have to share this with the public. He could have went on to live his life quietly and not said anything, which leads me to what I mentioned in the beginning of my video, the fact that I've actually discussed Bruce Willis in therapy starting in grad school. And the reason for that is Bruce Willis has been open about the fact that he has a stutter. It's something that he had when he was younger. He had therapy for it. At some point in his 20s, according to him, he was able to increase his fluency and decrease the stutters that he was experiencing. And I mean, when we watch him on screen, it's amazing to think of the fact that this person had this, you know, speech diagnosis when he was younger and into his teens. And I would imagine it had to have given him some second thoughts about going into acting, because you're speaking the whole time. You're under the stress of having cameras on you. I mean, I get nervous to record these videos, and that's nowhere near, you know, making movies for millions of viewers and a lot of people on set. So it's definitely a lot of pressure, especially for somebody who has a speech disorder. So the fact that he came out and talked about it and was open about it is something that was very helpful in some of our speech therapy sessions for people who are having fluency disorders. And the techniques that we used in our sessions for fluency is that, of course, we made sure to give some techniques and some ways to increase fluency. We actually did some practicing, some training. That was one part of the therapy, one part of the session. But there was also another part that focused on different ways to, build confidence, making sure that people have that support and they're not alone in their diagnosis. And so one of the things that we did in my school, in my master's program, is that we created a list of different famous people or just like people throughout history. And we talked about the fact that stuttering has been around since as far back as we can trace it. Like one of the people that we talked about was Moses, had a stutter. And so it's something that has been with us like as humans pretty much since the beginning of time. When I talked to the older groups, whenever I mentioned Bruce Willis, I saw the men in the room, like their face lit up, because a lot of them were unfamiliar with it. Again, if anyone watched him on screen, I think that we would all be shocked to know that he had a language disorder. And so the fact that he was essentially like one of the top actors of his time, like 20-30 years ago, he was like the top actor. So a lot of these older patients that were coming into the clinic, a lot of them were really huge fans of his movies and his work. And to have someone who you look up to, like think of your favorite celebrity right now, and then to know that they had the same struggle that you're having, it makes something so relatable, and it just kind of puts a human face on something that you could be going through on your own and is causing anxiety when you speak. And so when you see somebody like that, I would imagine that causing just a sense of relatability. And so I always loved Bruce Willis for the fact that he spoke openly about that, because he really didn't have to. No one would have ever known that he had this stutter as a child. He could have kept that to himself, and he opened up about it, which brings me back full circle to the fact that my opinion and my takeaway reaction to this news is just the fact that I really appreciate that he spoke up about it. He didn't have to. He's somebody who is older, and if he just chose not to make movies anymore just because he didn't feel like it, I don't think too many people would have questioned him on it. And the fact that he opened up about this when he didn't have to, it just gives him that much more respect in my eyes. He's bringing some awareness to this disease. There are lots of people who have probably never even heard of it. And there have been a lot of reports by people who have aphasia to feel very isolated and to feel alone with this disorder. Because again, as I've mentioned before, often this is something that happens as a result of an injury or a stroke, a head injury or a stroke. And so there are people who have been speaking fine their whole lives. They're able to communicate effectively. And then something happens, something outside of their control. And now they're unable to communicate to their loved ones and to the people around them. And very often there is awareness of that. They're understanding that they want to get the message out, but they can't. Or they're being spoken to, but they just cannot process what's being said to them. So there is definitely a lot of reports of the people who are being diagnosed with aphasia to have some isolation. So I just hope that this gives them that little bit of relatability, draw some awareness to it. I hope that we continue to talk about it. That's why I wanted to make this video. Now, if you hear somebody who has this diagnosis, I hope that that's something that you'll remember. And just remember to be kind to the people around you. We really don't know what is going on behind the scenes or what is happening in someone's life in today's day. So I think the message is to just be kind. I really appreciate Bruce Willis for speaking up about it. I hope he is doing well. You know, I'm sure he has lots of support around him. He seems to have a wonderful family. I just appreciate that this is something we were able to speak about. And I really wish him all the best. What's your favorite Bruce Willis movies? Because I know there's a lot. My favorite movie is the Die Hard movie, the second one. I think it was like in New York. I think it was with Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, such a great movie. Let me know your favorite movie down below. He's been in so many. But anyway, thank you so much for watching until the very end. I really appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with me one-on-one, I do have a website with free resources and different information. It's olivialaboratory.com. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.